Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the Nate Debate. I'm your host, Nate. And today I want to talk a little bit about PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. And I'm curious, what kind of frame rates are we going to be getting? What kind of resolutions are we going to be getting out of this? So, we look at what was been said by these companies. Sony has said and Microsoft have both said that the consoles will be able to deliver 8K resolutions at 120 frames per second. So for those who don't know, I'm just going to be very quick about this. Resolution, that's how detailed the image is. Frame rate, of course, is how fluid the image moves. Now, this is big because right now on our current generation, the max we are generally able to achieve is 4K with 30 frames per second. There are a few exceptions. There are certain games that can actually run 60 frames per second 4K, but they are very few and far in between. I might be able to count them on one hand. Now, with that being said, we do know that some of the games coming out for the new consoles at launch, such as Assassin's Creed Valhalla, will actually be releasing at 4K 30 frames per second. And to me, that makes me really scratch my head, but at the same time, I'm taking into consideration the fact that we know with this next generation of consoles, there is going to be a learning curve for the developers in making games run the best they can. So, while certain games coming out on the new consoles may be locked at 30 frames a second 4K, down the line, I believe, with what we have heard from Sony and Microsoft at that 120 frames per second 8K cap they've put on the systems, what we've heard there, I do believe over time things are going to get better and better and better. In fact, I think the new normal, after about a year of these consoles being on the market, will be 4K resolution and 60 frames per second. Give it a more time, perhaps that average will go up. Now, beyond that, I think you're going to see them do with the next generation consoles, and they're going to give you the option to play the game with either a higher frame rate, up to 120 frames per second, or you can say, okay, I want to go up to 8K resolution, but then you're going to take a hit in the frame rate, maybe down to that 60 frames per second. So we've got a couple of different aspects going on here. I'm trying to look at where things are going to be at launch. We do know with Assassin's Creed Valhalla that the frame rates could be a little lower. But there's another elephant in the room. You got resolution, you got frame rate, you've got other graphics that are not related to those two aspects that make up great visual experience. But one thing that I really think needs to be native right at launch to just about every single game that comes out on these consoles, that not a lot of people are talking about, but something that I've noticed that you can accomplish on a PS4 for certain games, and that is HDR. And what HDR is that is high dynamic range, which is basically just a fancy way of saying they have jacked the contrast ratio up to just unforeseen levels. So you are getting the brightest whites, the blackest blacks, and everything in between. HDR really brings out the best in the video games. In fact, I'd argue that you can actually see more of a difference in HDR over what you see in a difference between 1080p and 4K. Because you have to play some of the games. You play Red Dead Redemption 2, you play Spider-Man on PS4, you play Rocket League on PS4. The HDR capabilities are really something that just make the colors pop, the graphics pop. And as far as I'm concerned, if we're getting that, even if it's on a limited spectrum in these consoles that we have now, for next generation, well, this better be this better be a staple feature that's just about in every single game that I get. So there you go. This has been my talk about resolution, frame rate, HDR, some of my predictions, what we're going to see for the next generation of consoles, and I think it's something that a lot of people haven't been talking about, so I just wanted to bring it up. This has been the Nate Debate. I appreciate you checking the video out, and if you like these types of videos, I'd appreciate if you left a like and subscribe. So, until next time, guys, I'll see you right here on the Nate Debate. Take it easy.